Interviews with business owners and veteran executives who share their wisdom and expertise to help you de-stress, free up time, and make more money. Profits of IT. Welcome back to the Profits of IT. I am Jim Punzenberger, your host and the creator of the Managed Prospecting System. If you're looking to generate leads and appointments through hyper-personalized outreach without cold calling or spamming, check out managedprospectingsystem.com. I'm excited to have Charles Yeomans with me today. He's the CEO of AtomBeam. Charles, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about your company?
Sure. Yeah. No, thanks for having me, Jim. So yes, I'm Charles Yeomans. I am a three-time CEO, and I swore I wouldn't get involved in another startup, but here I am. Just quickly on my background. So I was a Navy officer. I have an MBA from Stanford. I worked on Wall Street for quite a while and then got into sort of the technology side of things. And that's where I've spent the last number of years. That's really me. And I can talk a little about AtomBeam if you like.
Sure. If you want to just, what does touch on what AtomBeam does, like
Sure.
understand that you guys, they're a software company.
We are. So we have a really interesting software. So what it does, in effect, is it uses a combination of a very old idea, which is code books, just things that match up to other things in a long series. And we match that up with some really exotic math and some machine learning. And what the effect of all that is we can take very, very small files, typical of the size of IoT, and we can make those files far smaller. So our typical reduction of an IoT file is about 75%. You say, well, what about compression? Well, compression works by looking at one file at a time, and it's looking for repetitions of pattern on a file. And IoT files are really small. They're too small to have much repetition. And so if you try to compress an IoT file, generally speaking, you might get a little less, and often you get it gets bigger because you're adding a header. So usually, most people don't use compression for IoT type data. So all these machines that are generating data out there, unless you're willing to just wait a while and batch it and then use compression, you don't see anybody using anything. We are the only way that you can reduce individual files, and therefore you can reduce data. And if you can reduce the size of the data by 75%, and we have really, really fast software, it boils down to you can increase your effective bandwidth by a factor of 4. The other thing we do, just sort of built into the way it works, we improve the security of everything we send. So while the word is 98% of IoT data has no protection, no security, we add security. We could add security to all of that at the same time, reduce the size of it.
So through your Kodak or through your
yeah. Well, it's not Kodak. It's just
I might not be using the right term with Kodak, but I know like in
it's the same kind of idea. Yeah.
I know with audio and video, it's Kodak, but through yours, the way that you through your software that reduces the size, it also then in turn you need that software to decrypt it, so to speak, so that that then adds security to the transmission of it.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm probably getting oversimplifying it, but
no, but look, I mean, when you really drill down and look at this thing, it's not fundamentally hard to get. We look at thousands of these little files at once. We find patterns not just in one, but among thousands. So you're going to find a lot more patterns, right? And so you find the pattern, you put it in a code book, you match it up to a little index. Now you've got this combination of these patterns in little indices, and you can put that whole thing, a code book, into a source and a destination. Now they can just talk in the indices. See what I mean?
Uh-huh.
So that way, really, it's a game changer. If you said, okay, I'm spending $1 million a year sending satellite data around, right? This IoT type satellite
Yep.
data. Well, guess what? We can probably reduce that by 75%. So if data transmission is a big cost for you, we have a big impact. And we're told by multiple customers, you have changed our business model.
Cool. Got it. So what's something interesting about you outside of work?
Ah, let's see. Well, I'm a big history buff. Read a lot of that. I can reel off every monarch of England since the beginning,
Wow.
and the date they came to the crown, and then they died. So how about that? Or abdicated in the case of Edward the Eighth in 1936.
That's interesting.
Well, it's something to do to make yourself go to sleep, right? So,
I guess I don't think I could use that information other than maybe in a trivia game, but
right, right. Yeah, well, it is. I mean, it's something you just, if you sit there and you try to do it and then, and try to like think through them all, then boom, it's enough to conk you out, so anyway, but in the course of it, you do learn them all. So
yes, it sounds like you'd learn a lot if you're studying that. That's a long period of time of
it is. Well, if you want to start with King Alfred the Great, then you'd be in 886. So
yeah, so that's a long time.
it is.
Anyways, what would you say is your superpower when it comes to business, and how can others learn from that and apply that in their own lives and their own businesses?
Well, I think that's a good question. I would say that it is convincing people that by bringing them to understanding, as opposed to sort of like just like this buy this car or something because it's whatever. Instead, you're what you really want to do, to my mind, is you want to enlighten somebody and make them understand. And if you do that, then they will come to understand why you want them to do whatever it is, invest in the company or something. But it's just bringing them along to, and it's not really quite a Socratic process, but it's more of a sort of journey of discovery. You're helping push them along. And so I think that's what I'm good at.
So helping them come to a journey, come to or
Yeah,
getting
I
them
mean,
from point A to point B
yeah, I mean, to
in
say, okay,
understanding something. Is
I
that
don't, yeah, I mean, let's think. So we were approached by a couple of big drug companies, and they want to know, will our stuff work with genomic data? And if you just say yes and blah blah blah, then they don't get there, right? Or they say, okay, well, that's nice, but if you say, here's why, and here, let me explain this, and let's walk through this other thing, and so forth, like our data is searchable in stored form. So if you think about genomics, you got these 60 gig genomes, and you want to look at 1 million of them, and you just want a little tiny sequence on each. Well, guess what? You got to decompress, dedupe, reverse dedupe, all these different genomes, and it takes forever. Ours is searchable in its stored form. So you can just type in some search terms, now you can look at all 1 million genomes all at once. But if you say to somebody, well, that's just true, and then you don't give the reasons,
uh-huh.
then or make them come to the conclusion themselves. I mean, you can start with a headline, but they really have to get to themselves. Think about it. People learn through experience. You can teach
Yep.
them all day long, but they learn by doing.
So do
So
you have
that's the goal.
Got it. So you have tips for practical application of this or learning? Like how do I learn? Well, how would I learn to, do this?
I think it part of it is strategy, and part of it is just sort of trying to build a relationship. If you say to somebody, you say right out of the box, I mean, I'm um let's get right to it. And then you start banging away on whatever it is without sort of talking a little and getting them comfortable and all that. So that's the first thing. And the second thing to me is it's just sort of a shared level of excitement and understanding and reaching a conclusion jointly, not sort of lecturing at them, not telling them, working with them on a voyage of discovery, if you want to be dramatic about it.
Anything else that is important when it comes to this?
Um, I'd say, I'd say those are the key things. I mean, yeah, there's all sorts of permutations and so forth. And, you got to know your audience, and you don't start the same place with a computer scientist explaining our stuff as you would, somebody who doesn't know anything about computer science. But the key is to make everybody feel like they don't feel like you can never make them feel dumb or like, just because they aren't an expert in this area, like somehow they've been disrespected or looked down upon in some way. And it's not the case. I mean, they may know a whole lot about something else. And even if they don't, then that's not a reason to hold someone in anything other than a respectful, you know, to treat them respectfully.
Uh-huh. Any other tips when it comes to getting somebody to, understand something,
Use pictures.
use
I think
pictures?
they help a lot.
Yep.
You write you see a lot of pitch decks that are almost all words. And I got to tell you, what I do is I do a page in a pitch deck, and then I go back, cut out the words out, and put in pictures. Then I cut more. Then I cut it again, and I cut it again. The goal is to have hardly any words and almost all pictures, because the pictures worth 1,000 words is not. There's no kidding. That really is, and because people want to look at something, and they want to look at something attractive too. You got a junky looking thing, and that makes it doesn't matter if your stuff isn't junky. It's going to be thought of as junky.
So image really is important.
Key.
Not only to
Yep.
use pictures, to use pictures that look good or that are appealing
Yeah.
um, to the eye.
And have again very few words. You should be able to follow the progression with almost nothing. A few words of explanation, fine, here and there, but you don't. If you're relying on those, if you cook the words away, could someone follow what you're doing? Basically, I mean, they should be able to. And
Got it.
that, I got to tell you, that is very freaking challenging to my mind. That's the hardest thing about putting a deck together.
Yes, that is a challenge to basically provide visual representation with the lack of words so that somebody understands uh, simply by imagery or pictures.
Right. You say like, okay, here's a picture of a huge aircraft, and okay, and you write a whole lot about next to it how it's a giant aircraft and it holds all this stuff and all this stuff. If you picture the giant aircraft and something everybody's used to, like a 737 or something next to it, or some other thing that everybody can get their arms around, doesn't even have to be another plane, then that brings it home. Boom. You see a guy standing next to a giant airplane. That is a giant airplane, you'd say.
Yep.
As
And then
opposed to it has this many tons and it does
or
this,
here's the
engines and whatever. Right.
here's the video of the like multiple semi trucks being unloaded from an airplane and something like that.
Exactly. Right. No, that's right. You got it. It's all about making people, getting the image into their heads. And it's better to just start with the image than write it than telling them about what the image looks like.
Got it. So any final words on this?
No, I think that's pretty that pretty much sums up how I look at these things. I mean, like to I really enjoy. I think that is, I guess if I was going to make a final point, is you really have to be excited about what you're doing. And if you aren't, people will see it and they want to, even if they don't consciously, they will not be convinced if you don't really believe it too.
Got it. So you got to believe it yourself before anybody
Yep.
else is going to believe it. So elevator pitch, who should be doing business with or who makes a great client for Adam Beam, and why should they be doing business with you?
Right. Well, it's really anybody who sends IoT data from one place to another, and they, especially if they care about the cost of data transmission or the speed or the amount. And we just won this contest in Sweden, and Saab is now moving forward with a POC with us. And you say, okay, that's interesting, but who is, you would say Saab would be an interesting customer because they have all these aircraft, their military stuff all over the place, all over the world. They send data from the aircraft to Sweden and on and on.
Yep.
And so that is one type of, sort of, as we see it, an end user customer. Then you have others who are, and that was public, but we have, like, for instance, a very large satellite company. And you say, but they don't want to lower the cost of transmission. They want the revenue. Well, guess what? In the new world with Elon Musk and Starlink and all this, every satellite operator is saying, okay, my world is changing here. I got to do something. And so if you can suddenly say to your customers, well, you've been paying us, or especially to a new customer, put it that way, it isn't going to cost you $1 million a year. It's going to cost you 250,000. And so the guy says, oh, okay, sign me up. And now he has a customer in 250,000 when he has fixed capacity in the sky, right? So with that kind of customer, we're not the end user, talking end user, they are, and they're reselling our product and as built into theirs. And so that's really the two things, the two kinds of customers, the end users and the ones who would use it to serve their customers.
So like network operator, like
like or a cloud service, or we're talking a big cloud service right now. Think about this: if you're a cloud service, and you could tell your customers, if you send your data to us, because we have Atom Beam, and the other guys don't, then if you send it to us, it will cost you 75% less to send it to us, and it'll add security to it. And once it's here, you can search the data easily. So there's some pretty compelling stuff here, that if you're a cloud service, if you're a satellite operator, if you're you have a software IoT platform. I mean, there's a long list here, and it isn't even limited to that, because like we can even fit. It's a really small thing. The actual code itself is tiny, so we could actually fit on a chip and allow data to move from chip to chip on a logic board 4 times faster. Depends on the data, not every kind of data. Like, we are not applicable to video, to be clear, because there's no patterns in it. It's been eliminated. But think about that. If you got to speed up every logic board out there by a factor of 2 to 4 or 7 or something, that'd be a good thing.
It definitely would. So what's the best way to get a hold of you guys?
Well, you can either go to our site, atombeamtech.com, or there's that's probably the best way. There's a phone number, and there's an info@atombeamtech.com listed there as well.
Got it. Cool. Well, thank you for your time and sharing with us today. It's been wonderful having you on.
Yep. Thanks for me, Jim.
Until next time on the Profits of IT, I am Jim Punzenberger, the creator of the Managed Prospecting System. If you're looking to generate leads and appointments, check out managedprospectingsystem.com.
Thank you for tuning in to the Profits of IT. Please smash that like button, subscribe, and share.